Remember the year 2020? The year when major international markets took several hits? Well, the Swiss watch market was no different. But the good news is that 2020 is over, and Swiss watch sales have significantly recovered, with exports increasing by 11.4% in the first 7 months of 2022. In this video, we break down the recent events happening in the Swiss watch market, and we talk about which countries haven't recovered yet. People are spending money on watches this year, and the question is why? Well, we have the answer. While some foresee a potential slowdown, LVMH's Bulgari is experiencing far greater growth as Geneva Watch Days get underway. We will get into the details of the Geneva Watch Days soon, but the first few statistics in market analysis. Alright. Did you know the American market is still nowhere near saturated? This year has seen Americans endure $6 per gallon gas costs and cartons of eggs that suddenly cost the entire farm. It has been a disaster, hasn't it? Despite rising prices and interest rates, Americans continue to buy luxury watches. Swiss watch shipments to the United States increased 31.4% in the first 6 months of 2021, and the United States now accounts for roughly 16% of total Swiss watch exports this year. The United Kingdom had a comparable percentage gain. Their exports gain have gone up 31.8%. European countries weren't left out. A number of large European countries, including Germany, France, and Spain, have witnessed massive gains in exports. For Germany, export gains went up 25.4%. For France, 36.5%. And for Spain, a whopping 41.8%. However, Asia continues to be the dominating region for Swiss watches overall, accounting for exactly 49% of the value of all Swiss exports this year to date. Strange, isn't it? The fast-growing markets are in North America and Europe, but only Hong Kong and China, of Swiss's top 15 export destinations, had negative growth in 2017. Of those 15, 11 saw growth in the percentile by a double digit. The Federation of the Swiss Watch Industry report makes a point of emphasizing that the US market benefited in particular from more deliveries as a result of the challenges affecting delivery in China, which is in keeping with what many different merchants and collectors are saying. As we all know, the extensive lockdowns and restrictions have persisted in mainland China throughout the year, closing countless retail stores and distribution centers and slowing Chinese citizens' international travel. Of course, this had a significant negative impact on Swiss watch exports to China and Hong Kong, with China's exports gain going down by 26.3% and Hong Kong by 11.5%. The next few months are looking good. Now, as a result of the global outcry over the invasion of Ukraine, Swiss watch shipments to Russia have continued to plummet. So far, export gains have gone down by 64.3%. The sale and export of timepieces to Russia have recently been halted by numerous Swiss watchmakers, including the Swatch Group, Richemont, LVMH, Rolex, and Patek Philippe. Since the start of the Ukraine conflict, the entire amount of Swiss watches exported to Russia has decreased by more than 98%, according to the Federation of the Swiss Watch Industry. Russian watch exports to Switzerland were 260.1 million Swiss francs in the entire 2021 calendar year, ranking Russia as the 17th largest market for the Swiss watch sector last year. You are left with scarcely more than 5 million Swiss francs after subtracting 98% of that amount. In essence, that is just one Richard Mille. Like we said, not looking good at all. The growth is being driven by high-end watches. In contrast to watches with an export price under 500 Swiss francs, the total export value of watches with an individual export price over 3,000 Swiss francs climbed by over 15% this year. After all the praise surrounding the high values of the exports, it's a little surprising to hear there's such a contrast between inventory numbers and individual value. As the Federation of the Swiss Watch Industry very pointedly notes in its report that the total number of Swiss watches being exported is, quote, at an all-time low, attaining less than half of the figures recorded 10 years ago. Just take a moment to hear this. With 11.3 billion Swiss francs, the total export value of all wristwatches provided by Swiss watchmakers in the first half of 2022 set a record for exports in the first half of a year. So you see, exclusivity is actually effective. What are people saying? For now, people's state of mind stays positive. How long will it last? We don't know, said Jean-Christophe Babin, CEO of Bulgari, a jewelry and watch business owned by Louis Vuitton and Mo Hennessy. He claimed that Bulgari was expanding its market share because its watch business was growing, quote, much stronger than the rate of Swiss watch exports. While the crisis in Ukraine and inflation were all causes for concern over the past 2 years, Edouard Melan, the head of the independent watch brand H. Moser & C., noted that, quote, watch exports are nevertheless close to all-time highs. The sales were up by more than a quarter so far this year, with some bottlenecks for watch cases and straps, he added, adding, quote, we need to take advantage while it lasts, but we have to get ready for a slowdown. However, if we are being honest, a lot has been going on in the watch market recently. For instance, Rolex just increased their prices in the UK and Japan. Here's what we know. Following the pound's decline to almost its lowest level in more than 3 decades versus the US dollar, Rolex increased the price of its watches in the UK. A business spokeswoman acknowledged that on September 1st, the leading Swiss luxury watch brand raised the prices of its timepieces sold in Britain by an average of 5%. The price increase, which was first noted by trade publication WatchPro, comes after the British pound's value versus the US dollar fell to close to its lowest level since 1985, at $1.15. The relative cost of Rolex watches decreased in the UK compared to other markets when the pound fell. According to WatchPro, the cost of a Rolex Submariner without a date function climbed to £7,500 from £7,150. A GMT Master 2 with a red and blue bezel now costs £9,000 instead of $8,400. Across January, Rolex increased prices by a comparable proportion in the majority of important regions, including the US and the UK. Rolex, the most well-known Swiss luxury watch company, has an annual sales volume of roughly 8 billion Swiss francs and a market share of close to 29%. The majority of clients are required to sign up for waiting lists with authorized dealers and wait months or even years before receiving the call because demand for Rolex watches has long outpaced supply. Inflation is keeping everybody on their toes, don't you think so? This year's Geneva Watch Days will feature participation from about 40 manufacturers. This informal industry event was started in 2020. What happens during the event? Exhibits are presented at hotels and boutiques throughout the city, making them more approachable than the spring's exclusive Watches and Wonders Expo. Despite not participating in the event this year, Guido Torreni, the chief executive of the Sandoz family foundation-owned niche brand Parmigiani, claimed that the company could not meet the demand that had increased 4.5 times from the previous year. A former Bulgari executive named Torreni responded, quote, "We're getting there," when asked when it would break even. According to American retailer Danny Govberg, who is also the co-founder and chairman of the watch marketplace Watchbox, the market for new timepieces is still strong, with waiting lists for many models. Govberg's remarks in August this year were echoed by those made by British retailer Watches of Switzerland. Govberg did point out a decline in secondary market prices. In an email response, he stated that since stabilizing, the difference between retail pricing and what watches are actively trading for has decreased from its all-time highs in early spring 2022. The market for new watches could be harmed if secondary watch prices dropped far below main watch prices, according to Kepler Chevreux analyst John Cox. But that hasn't happened so far. But whatever happens, we will be here to tell you about it. Overall, throughout the first half of this year, demand for Swiss watches increased across the board. With the notable exception of China and Hong Kong, watch shipments increased to the majority of markets. According to the Federation of the Swiss Watch Industry, the decline in the sector's performance during the first half of the year 2022 was mostly unaffected by macroeconomic, geopolitical, and health conditions. Despite this rapid expansion, the industry is at an all-time low, having reached fewer than half of the numbers tallied 10 years ago. But we are hopeful for more growth, are we not? If you didn't know, top Swiss watchmakers include Patek Philippe, Rolex, Omega, Audemars Piguet, Breitling, Tag Heuer. Now, did you know that since 2015, when Apple introduced its wristwatch, the Apple Watch, the industry's fortunes have declined? 2018 saw Apple surpass Swiss watchmaker Swatch to take the top spot in the watch industry for the first time.